Welcome back, everyone. This will be round 2 of this video. I was in the middle of my last one and I accidentally stopped it, and I didn't really feel like stitching it together later because my movie editing skills aren't that great. So here it is again. This is going to be a quick rundown of my Nikon manual focus bodies. I just did one on the F100. And this will be on my manual focus bodies. So to start off with, I got this F2. This is a Nikon F2. This was obviously the top of the line camera when it came out in 1971. This one is from 1976, and the way you can tell that is, just a minute here, by the these numbers back here. This says F2 obviously because that's the model, and then I don't think it's actually they did this on purpose. So if your camera was made in like December or January, I don't think this is exact, but if they say 7, like this one says 76, that means it was made in 1976. Again, I don't think they did that on purpose necessarily, and I don't think that's always the case, but I did look up the serial number for this one, and it was made like in, I think, March of 1978, something like that. So anyway, I got this camera about not quite a year ago. And I didn't really like it to start off with. First thing I noticed, it's really heavy. It's extremely well made. I have never picked up a camera as well made as this one. Just everything on it is just super solid. The rewind crank, just the machining and the finish on it, everything just clicks. And it's just super solid. I used to shoot Minoltas, and I really liked those cameras, but they were nowhere in the same league as this in terms of build quality. So I did like that about it, but I had made a couple of mistakes. Number one is this camera came with a 50mm f2, which is a great lens. However, I was shooting black and white through it, and I did not have a filter on it. And if you know anything about that, I was shooting outside, and that made it even worse. Washes out your skies, you get a lot less contrast, and your pictures just don't look that great. So that was my first mistake. And then I eventually did pick up a lot of yellow and orange filters for when I shoot black and white, and that makes a world of difference. It basically blocks out certain colors and allows others in, and it just makes your pictures look that much better if you're shooting black and white. So that was the first thing, and that was my mistake, obviously. The second thing was the 40-year-old meter in this camera. It does work. They're not known for being that reliable, and I have had some issues with this one, although for the most part it's been fairly reliable. So I don't, these are always tricky to do, but there we go. So you can see right there, there is a needle, and that will, you can see right next to it, that's the shutter speed. And you can see the needle, and you have to try, I'll kind of wind it up here, and you have to try to get that in the middle. Now I've learned with this camera it's best to be on the side of over exposure. See the needle, if you can see the needle in there right now, it's being overexposed. Just a second here. Okay, so right now if you can see the needle over there, it's currently overexposed. And you can see it moved over there. It's a little underexposed, so I'll move it back, and you can see it's about right in the middle there. It's not my favorite to use, but it does work, and I do use it when I go out and you just kind of have to learn how to, you know, I know with this camera I have to, you know, it looks like based on where the needle's at that I'm overexposing it, but I know that it's going to turn out just fine. And with film anyway, there's a lot of, you know, you can overexpose quite a bit and still be able to bring it back. The second thing I didn't like was the shutter release. So you hold the camera and the shutter release is in this casing, and it's just not, you got to stick your finger down in there and it just doesn't feel that great. So when I finally decided I was going to, I like the lens compatibility with Nikons, and I wanted to actually go with this system instead of, you know, doing, I had a digital body Canon, and all my film stuff was Minolta, and I also had this. So I went and I purchased a soft shutter release. This is not a factory one, but it really doesn't matter. The factory ones are like 20, 30 bucks, something like that. I think I paid like 11 for this. And this is an excellent addition to the F2. It doesn't seem like it's much, but it makes a world of difference. At least for me it did. It also means that you're a little closer to your shutter speed dial. Your shutter speed's down here in green. So yeah, that was if you get one of these cameras, definitely get a shutter release dial. Let's see what else. The prism does come off. I'll show you that quick. You push this back button in, and then you push this in, and you move forward. I'm actually not going to do it. It's not difficult, but for the sake of making this video, I really don't want to be wrenching on it. I can't remember his YouTube channel. I think it's something like Samsung 9 Galaxy or something like that. He has really in-depth, really nice videos on a lot of the Nikon cameras. So that's enough of the F2. I'll get to the lenses now. This is probably my favorite lens I've gotten so far. This is the, I will take it off here. I think you have to set it to f16 to take it off the F2. Yep. This still has the coupling meter up here, which is what these use, the prongs use. So this is probably my favorite lens I've gotten so far. And it's not even the best version. This is the very famous Nikon 105 2.5, and now I know, after using it now, I know what all the, you know, hype is about. This is an awesome portrait lens, very sharp even at 2.8. This is actually the earlier, I think it's the Sonar design. I think the later ones are Goss design, which are technically better, but even this one is really good. Awesome lens. The color rendering, whatever you want to call it, is awesome on this lens. It's really good. This is a very nice lens. Definitely recommend it. They're not that expensive. I think you can get them for around, $100 or so. I would probably you might as well get the AI version. I got this for a really good deal. I think I paid like $60, $70 for this, which is why I got the pre-AI. Plus I was going to be using them with the F2, which you don't need. So I will move on now. I will set that back here. This is the other body that I have. This is the FTn, which is an older than the F2. I don't know if it's older, but it is. I think there was the FT, which was older. Now, the thing with this camera was, back in the 60s and early 70s. Um, the Nikon F and the F2 were extremely expensive. You know, they were the pro bodies. So even if someone could afford an F2, I think the F2 when it came out was equivalent to today's money, somewhere around like $4,000. You more than likely couldn't afford two of them. So a lot of people would go and buy an FTn. It was kind of the midline. This actually still says Nicker Matte on it. It's still Nikon. It's just what they called some of their cameras back then. This obviously with this meters using the prong, so you could mount a newer lens on here. You could even mount an AF lens, but it won't meter. It does need this prong. You can see it. Probably the most interesting thing about this camera, I should note, it's very well made, like the F2. The film door, it's not quite as, it's just as tough, but some of the materials don't feel quite as nice as the F2, but for the most part it is. But the most interesting part about this camera is the shutter speed is right here. I'm moving it with this little prong over here, and that's the shutter speed. So that's pretty different. That's just pretty old school. That's kind of how a lot of rangefinders were, and these cameras really, these early SLRs, especially from Nikon, were basically their rangefinders with a prism and a reflex mirror put in them. So that's interesting. The viewfinder is, you can see it's got the needle over there. We'll try to see. Right now it says it's underexposed. I actually prefer I actually prefer this one in the FTN to the one in the F2. I don't really like the one in the F2, to be brutally honest, but I do like using the F2 more. I'll have to say though, if this camera had a different focusing mirror, I would probably like using this camera more. But it has the circle, I don't know exactly the name of it, I probably should. The prism focusing mirror, I think is something like that, and I hate it. I can't see when I'm in focus or not. So I'm definitely not a big fan of that. This has the film counter has a little magnifier on so you can see it. Yeah, these are, I should note, these are both mechanical cameras, the F2 as well. So everything works without a battery. Has a nice shutter sound. The F2 takes standard, what are they, LR44, I think this actually has the, I can't think of the name of it, the silver oxide, something like that, battery. Not lithium, but not the regular alkalines either. They have a flatter discharge, which are extremely easy to find. This, on the other hand, takes a battery that isn't made anymore. It's old mercury battery. But you can find, I think it's like a 675 hearing aid battery. They're really small. I bought a number 9 rubber O-ring, I think from Home Depot or something. There for faucets, and I set that in there.